She shredded the $5 million check before my eyes, reducing my father's legacy to oily paper confetti. But the CEO who walked in moments later offered me $10 million to burn the whole bank down. The air conditioning in the First Citadel Bank lobby was fighting a losing battle against the late July heat pressing against the glass, but inside the chill was entirely manufactured. I dressed for this meeting for a week, a bespoke suit that cost more than my first car, Italian leather shoes that whispered rather than scuffed. I needed to project an image that matched the number in my briefcase, $5 million. It wasn't my first time dealing with serious money, but it was the first time moving that much liquidity in one fell swoop. And it was for something deeply personal, the final buy-in for the community center my late father had dreamed of building. I was directed to the private office of Miss Eleanor Vance, the branch manager. Her office was minimalist, all sharp angles and muted gray, reflecting the bank's sterile efficiency. She was already seated behind a massive mahogany desk, a thin woman with hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful, her eyes darting over my documents before I even sat down. "Mr. Davies," she said, her voice flat, barely acknowledging my handshake. "Let's expedite this. The transfer instructions are clear, but this volume requires verification beyond standard protocol." I slid the certified bank check, drawn on one of the most reputable private institutions in the state, across the desk. It felt heavier than paper. "It's all there, Ms. Vance, drawn from the proceeds of the Miller estate settlement. I just need the funds verified and deposited into the foundation's account by close of business today." She picked up the check with the tips of two manicured fingers, holding it as if it were contaminated. She didn't look at the signature block or the routing numbers. Instead, her eyes scanned my face, then briefly flicked down to my skin tone before snapping back up. It was a micro-expression, gone in a millisecond, but I'd spent my life learning to read those tells. I felt the familiar low thrum of indignation start beneath my ribs. "Mr. Davies," she sighed, pulling a pen from a silver holder, "this is a large sum. And frankly, your documentation, while technically correct, seems rushed. Are you sure this isn't some sort of temporary holding account scenario? We often see attempts to move illicit funds through legitimate-looking channels." My jaw tightened. "Ms. Vance, I am donating this money, not laundering it. I have the estate lawyer's direct contact information, the Foundation's 501c3 documentation, and a verifiable history with the originating institution for the last decade. What exactly is your concern?" She didn't answer. She leaned forward, her gaze hardening. "I need to run this through our internal security assessment immediately. Due to the nature of the originating account, I cannot simply process this. I will have to send it to the back office for comprehensive verification. This will take time." "Time I don't have," I countered, leaning forward too, keeping my voice dangerously even. "The closing is at 3 p.m. If this isn't confirmed, the land purchase falls through, and the Foundation loses its deposit. Can you call the routing bank right now? That takes 5 minutes." She shook her head, a tiny, dismissive movement. "Policy, Mr. Davies. My hands are tied. I'll have someone shred the physical copy to prevent any further attempts at unauthorized use while we verify the digital trail." My blood ran cold. "Shred it? Miss Vance, this is a certified check. It's the physical instrument of payment. You can't just—" Before I could finish the sentence, she picked up the check, turned to a sleek, matte-black cross-cut shredder sitting discreetly next to her filing cabinet, and without another word, fed the $5 million check into the machine. The sound was deafening in the quiet office, the gnashing, tearing sound of millions of dollars being reduced to confetti. It went on for what felt like an eternity. When the machine stopped spitting out the fine, oily strips, she calmly leaned back, tapping the remnants on her desk into a neat, useless pile. "There," she said, finally meeting my eyes with a look of triumphant, petty righteousness. "Now we wait for the official confirmation from corporate security. Don't worry, Mr. Davies. If it's legitimate, you'll get your money. If not, well, we've protected the system." I sat there, my carefully constructed composure shattering. Years of work, my father's legacy, reduced to glittering garbage because of what I instinctively knew was racial profiling disguised as protocol. I pushed myself back from the desk, my breath catching painfully in my throat. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I stood up, towering over her desk. The silence in the room suddenly thick with suppressed violence. "You have no idea who you just insulted, Ms. Vance," I managed, my voice a strained whisper. "You just destroyed the proof of payment for $5 million on the word of your own prejudice. Call your boss. Now." She looked up at me, a flicker of something, perhaps fear, perhaps just annoyance at the disturbance, crossing her face. She reached for her desk phone, clearly intending to call security headquarters, but just as her fingers touched the receiver, the door to her office swung open without a knock. A man stood in the doorway. He was older, maybe late 60s, impeccably dressed in a suit that looked a decade newer than mine. He had a silver mane of hair and eyes that seemed to take in the entire scene. The ruined check, my rigid posture, Ms. Lizzie Vance's pale face, in a single, comprehensive sweep. "Eleanor," the man said, his voice a deep, resonant baritone that commanded immediate attention. "I apologize for interrupting, but I received an unusual alert about a high-value item being physically destroyed on the premises just moments ago. I came down immediately to investigate." He paused, his gaze finally settling on me. He surveyed me slowly, deliberately, from my expensive shoes to the rage simmering just beneath my skin. Then, a slow, thoughtful smile spread across his face, a smile that held a surprising amount of genuine warmth. He took a step into the room, closed the door softly behind him, and looked directly at me, completely ignoring the panicked Eleanor Vance shrinking behind her desk. "Sir," the man said, extending his hand toward me with unmistakable deference. My name is Robert Sterling. I am the regional president of Sterling Financial Group. Would you do me the courtesy of explaining exactly what happened here?" My mind stalled. Robert Sterling. The name hit me like a physical blow. Sterling Financial Group wasn't just a competitor. They were the titans of wealth management in the tri-state area, rumored to be the ultimate destination for the kind of capital I was moving. And he was the regional president. Eleanor Vance hadn't just messed with a client. She had apparently executed a high-speed financial suicide right in front of the CEO's regional proxy. I stared at his outstretched hand, my own still tingling from the shock of the shredding. For a moment the anger drained away, replaced by a dizzying sense of dangerous opportunity. I ignored his hand, my eyes flicking past him to the petrified Miss Vance. "Miss Vance," I said, my voice now dangerously low, cutting through the tension. "You told me you needed to verify the digital trail, yet you destroyed the primary negotiable instrument before confirmation. Why?" Sterling shifted his weight slightly, his eyes never leaving me, his presence immediately drawing all the oxygen out of the room. He seemed to be observing a fascinating scientific experiment rather than intervening in a crisis. "Mr. Sterling," I continued, choosing my words with surgical precision, "before I answer that, perhaps you can explain why your branch manager felt the need to profile me and then physically destroy a $5 million certified check drawn on a secure institutional account." Sterling let his hand drop, his expression shifting from curious to intensely serious in an instant. He glanced at Vance, a look of profound disappointment crossing his features. "Eleanor," he said, his tone devoid of heat, which somehow made it worse. It was the sound of a man who had already decided the fate of a subordinate. The Davies Foundation account is one of our long-standing, high-net-worth client portfolios. I personally oversaw the initial compliance review when Mr. Davies's father set up the trust 20 years ago. The documentation supporting this specific transaction was flagged as unusual only because it was initiated by Mr. Davies himself, bypassing standard advisory channels for a time-sensitive charitable acquisition. It required a courtesy call, not summary destruction. He turned back to me, his posture softening marginally. Mr. Davies, and please accept my profound apologies. This is an inexcusable breach of client trust, and frankly a catastrophic lapse in judgment on Miss Vance's part. She will be held fully accountable. I finally took a slow, steadying breath, the adrenaline beginning to wear off, and the immense weight of the situation settling back in. Accountability, Mr. Sterling, is nice, but my closing is in under 2 hours. The land deal is contingent. I need this transfer processed now, and I need assurances that this level of casual discrimination won't impede my business again. Sterling nodded once, decisively. He pulled a slim, gold-plated phone from his inner jacket pocket, certainly not a standard cell phone, and tapped the screen twice. My executive assistant, Marcus, is standing by in my suite upstairs. Boys, he has administrative override for the entire region's clearance protocols, including immediate issuance of new instruments pending physical cancellation. Eleanor, you will immediately email Marcus the transaction codes and the digital copies of the original check, and you will remain on the line while he confirms the transfer details with the purchasing entity's escrow agent. Vance, visibly trembling, grabbed her desk phone. Yes, Mr. Sterling. Right away. Sterling dismissed her with a slight wave and turned his full attention back to me. Mr. Davies, I understand the seriousness of the deadline. I am going to personally escort you up to my private office suite, where we can monitor the transfer in real time, provide you with an immediate confirmation letter signed by myself and the regional compliance officer. Aye, and discuss how Sterling Financial can better serve the legacy of the Davies Foundation moving forward. Consider this a crisis management scenario. He offered his arm slightly, a gesture of old-world respect. I hesitated, looking at the shredded remains of the check one last time. This man had swooped in, neutralized the threat, and was offering me a direct line to the top. It was a lifeline, but it also felt like an invitation into a far more complicated game. Mr. Sterling, I said, taking a calculated risk. If I come upstairs, I want a guarantee that Ms. Vance is immediately suspended pending a formal investigation into her conduct regarding other minority clients she manages, not just me. And I want to know why she felt empowered to treat a proven client with such contempt in the first place. Sterling's smile returned, a sharper this time, less accommodating. Mr. Davies, you have my absolute guarantee on both counts. But I must warn you, he leaned in conspiratorially, his voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow cut through the room. Eleanor Vance is merely the symptom. If you look closely at the compliance logs for this branch, specifically the audit reports from the last 18 months, you might find the systemic rot goes much deeper than just one manager's prejudice. It points directly to the oversight team that approved her tenure. You have access to all of it now. The question is, once you are in my office looking at the real books, will you be satisfied with just the community center, or will you want to tear the entire structure down? The air in Sterling's private office suite was silent, save for the gentle hum of high-end electronics. It was located on the top floor, offering a panoramic view of the city skyline, the very city my father and I had always wanted to improve with that community center. The transfer confirmation, a crisp, legally binding document stamped with Sterling's personal seal, lay on the glass table between us. The funds officially settled into the Foundation's escrow account with 30 minutes to spare before the deadline. The land was ours, but the cost of that victory felt suddenly much higher. Sterling had been true to his word. Miss Vance was gone, escorted out by discreet security guards 30 minutes after we reached his suite. He had then provided me, with a slightly alarming degree of excess, with the preliminary audit trail she mentioned. What I saw wasn't just a single prejudiced manager. It was a pattern of rejected or severely delayed high-value applications from individuals who shared my background, all quietly shuffled away by Vance and initially signed off on by a compliance director whose signature block I recognized from old bank statements. A man named Arthur Finch. "So, Mr. Sterling," I said, leaning back, feeling the exhaustion of the day finally catch up to me, but my focus was razor sharp. I tapped the screen displaying Finch's internal approval memos, all rubber-stamping Vance's discriminatory practices. "You said Vance was a symptom. Finch seems to be the infection. He cleared these reports knowing full well what Vance was doing, or perhaps encouraging it. Why?" Sterling poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into heavy crystal tumblers, pushing one toward me. I declined. He took a slow sip of his own scotch, the ice clinking softly. "Arthur Finch was a good mid-level manager for 20 years, Mr. Davies. Reliable, predictable. When Vance was hired, she came with powerful and quiet references. References that suggested she would streamline the branch's operations, particularly concerning certain high-risk demographics." Sterling paused, looking out the window at the financial district below. Finch was nearing retirement. He wanted a clean exit, a solid pension. He didn't want scrutiny. Vance offered him that protection, and a hefty severance bonus if things ever went south, in exchange for looking the other way. "A bribe disguised as early retirement planning," I summarized dryly. "And you claim you didn't know about this until I walked into Vance's office?" Sterling turned to me, his expression suddenly heavy with genuine regret. "Mr. Davies, I manage a portfolio of assets spanning 3 states. Oversight is decentralized. Finch reported to my deputy regional director, who reports to me. I rely on the integrity of those levels of management. I should have been auditing the smaller branches more frequently, yes. My mistake was trusting the structure. Your appearance today, shattering that illusion, was the catalyst I needed." He set his glass down with a decisive click. "Here is the resolution, Mr. Davies. The Foundation's land deal is secure. Vance is terminated, and her departure will be officially cited for gross misconduct related to the illegal destruction of negotiable assets. A felony, by the way. Finch will be given the option to resign immediately, quietly, with no pension, or face a full federal investigation into financial malfeasance and aiding fraud, which I am prepared to initiate personally by tomorrow morning." He leaned forward, his regional authority radiating outward. "And finally, Mr. Davies, as restitution not just for the stress, but for the near loss of a crucial community asset, I want to offer you something more substantial. The Davies Foundation needs seed funding beyond this land acquisition. We will establish a permanent, zero-fee advisory relationship with your foundation, managed directly by my executive office. Furthermore, I will personally match the $5 million you just deposited, conditional on seeing a fully structured blueprint for your center within the next fiscal year. That's $10 million committed to your father's vision, Mr. Davies. A true partnership." The offer was staggering. $10 million, and secured by the very man who was supposed to be overseeing the corruption. It was a complete reversal of fortune, a triumphant victory wrested from the jaws of bureaucratic dismissal. The initial rage had cooled, replaced by a profound, quiet sense of justice achieved. I looked at the city, no longer seeing towers of ivory and concrete, but potential. "Mr. Sterling," I said, finally reaching for the tumbler of scotch. The amber liquid caught the afternoon light. "You have my attention. The community center will be named the Sterling Legacy Project, in honor of your commitment to accountability. Send the paperwork for the matching funds to my lawyer immediately." I raised the glass in a silent toast to the man who had accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, uncovered a deep fault line in his own organization. I took a long drink. The scotch was smooth, expensive, and tasted exactly like victory, earned through sheer unyielding confrontation. The bank manager shredded my check, thinking she was ending my pursuit. Instead, she had delivered me directly to the CEO, who not only cleared the path but financed the entire journey. The foundation was finally set,